Yes, but you see, self-acceptance, I think, is again about layers. First, there is the basic physical level of the human body, and then there is the deeper level of, for example, some of our unique natural talents and innate abilities.
By the way, let's talk about those because you mentioned accepting your potential. But how do you know that you're accepting this potential? How do you know? Let me rephrase it. To realize that you have this potential and you're either not using it or not unlocking it, or maybe you are, but not fully.
That's cool. I can share something from my own life, and I've also observed this in others. I can say that potential is definitely passed down. How do you figure out what kind of potential you have and from whom you inherited it? Probably, you just need to look at your childhood, most often up to about 8 years old. After that, it starts to change a bit under the influence of school and everything else. Especially the first 5 years, that's a clear indicator. What did you love to do? Whether it was to sing, dance, draw, dress up nicely, pretend to be a teacher, or even be a doctor, I don't really know. Just try to take a moment to remember what you truly love to play. That is the time when, up until we are 5 years old, we all unconsciously do what has already been passed down to us. And then as we continue to grow up, naturally at that age, we're not thinking about becoming a lawyer. We'd rather want to be a doctor. So basically, it all comes from the mind. The clearest indicator is up to 5 years old, though some people can keep it until 7 or 8. But after that, it changes. That's the first indicator. If you remember what you did before you were 5, for example, I personally used to dance. And that's why,
I used to act out dramas.
well, then let's go to the theater. At least take an acting class. As for singing, I can't say I ever knew how to do that. I didn't do that as a child. I danced, that's for sure. There were some attempts at singing, but I wasn't very good at it. That's what they told me. By the way, I was also told that apparently someone tried to enter me into some contest. That was pretty funny too. What else? Well, since I was bald until I was 5, I would always put on tights and pretend I had long hair. Yes, and actually, throughout my whole childhood, I always imagined myself as a fairy. I used to walk around the house like that, thinking, about miracles and magic. And another thing, I thought about writing interesting books. I guess the writing part somehow turned into making posts. I don't know, about magic. One way or another, I tried to convey that and show people that this magic exists. It happens in life. But for some reason, especially my closest ones, they are the very people who find it so hard to believe in it. But if I take a step back and look at the whole picture, at what I discovered in myself once I had passed that particular age, it turns out when I was 12 years old, my grandmother passed away, my mom's mother. And I changed a lot in terms of character. That is, I remember myself as one person before 12, and after 12, I remember myself as someone else. At the moment when she died, a certain amount of her potential, so to speak, was transferred to me. The potential was very substantial, very masculine in energy, intense, and it was hard to break through it, specifically from the perspective a lot had to be done just to break through even a drop of something feminine there. And as it turned out, the secret was in what someone here suggested to me. So basically, I couldn't have managed without a specialist. They told me that in order for this potential to unfold within me as gently as possible, I needed to take vocal lessons. And I did take vocal lessons. I don't remember for how long, but for a certain period of time, I attended vocal classes. I even remember the moment when I started to sing. My teacher was shocked, and I was shocked too. I thought, who is singing? Is that me? And it was such a short period of time when I realized that everything just, suddenly clicked.
And
And that's it. After that, I didn't need to do it anymore.
well, look, you said, for example, that you need to remember your childhood. But what if at some point you're sitting there, you're already over 30, over 40, it doesn't matter, and something seems off, but you don't understand what it is? Where should you look in that case?
In that case, I've had clients like that. We would simply make a list of everything the client or, well, the person thought they liked. A month for drawing, a month for singing, a month for dancing, a month for acting, a month for chess, a month for cycling, a month for something else. In other words, try different options. And ideally, try things you've never done in your life. Maybe you've been running your whole life, but you've never ridden a bike. Or, I don't know, you've never tried skateboarding. Or something else, it doesn't really matter. Just really try things out. And usually, at some point, you feel such a strong internal reaction and you realize, this is it. I like this. This is what I want to keep doing.
So basically, by the method of trial and error, you're looking for something that sparks a response in you, right? Some energy and interest. And that interest should work, well, as I see it, not necessarily as the field you'll go into, but that field can push you to move forward. That's how it should work.
What does creativity actually give us?
So what does creativity give us? I don't know. For me personally, it gives me something I'm interested in.
Exactly, it awakens interest. Just imagine for a second you wake up in the morning and you suddenly know exactly what you want to do. You think to yourself, oh, like today I really want, for example, to go over to this beautiful park nearby. I don't know, maybe just to go for a long run. You picture yourself moving among all these tall green trees. And then I want to, I don't know, perhaps find a quiet spot to just sit and relax for a while. Of course, there are some everyday matters, but in your free time, instead of just sitting and scrolling through your phone, maybe you want to draw, maybe you want to dance. And most importantly, how do you know if something suits you or not? It's when after you finish doing it, you feel great, in a great mood, in a great state. You're smiling, endorphins are flowing, you're happy. That's how you know that this creative activity energizes you. So you need to keep doing it, keep going. That's why creativity is needed, to help us unleash this energy of interest within us. And what is interest? It's the sparkle in your eyes when you want to live, when you're excited about life, when you want to discover something new for yourself every time and be amazed by this world.
All right. So we've established that you need interest in life, and then it becomes easier to move through life. Now tell me, how are self-acceptance and relationships connected?
Yes, they're directly connected. It's so interesting that everything in this world is interconnected. You can't just take one thing and just single it out and say, this is the most important, or like, that is the most important. It's all connected with each other. When, I'll probably just say it as it is. From a woman's perspective, yes, I can only speak from a woman's point of view. When a woman touches herself with pleasure, she can caress herself. She can look at herself in the mirror with pleasure. I don't know, mentally hug and kiss herself. I think then it will be more or less clear how your partner will treat you. If he doesn't treat you that way, then maybe he's not your partner. But here, yes, there's a double layer. You need to understand the different nuances. Sometimes it happens that, yes, this is still your partner, but for example, well, again, a lack of separation can affect his ability to accept you. So there are a lot of such nuances. That's why self-acceptance and relationships are very closely connected. Consider how truly ready you are to fully accept yourself, every single part of your physical body, every unique element of your innate creativity, your personal interests, your little quirks, and all of your wonderful oddities. The ability to, say, throw up in a restaurant and not judge yourself for it and things like that and so on. It, in general, creates that kind of energy within you where you become so interesting to yourself that people who are similar to you start to be drawn to you anyway. That is, you will be interesting to each other. And this acceptance of yourself, God willing, he also has self-acceptance. And then your matching is already on a different, probably higher level, more qualitative. You
You just started talking about self-acceptance, and it reminded me of a great movie. I think it's called I Feel Pretty, where a girl, she either hits her head, I think she goes to the gym, falls, hits her head, and wakes up thinking she's beautiful.
And
The way she started behaving because of that completely changed her whole life. And by the way, men also started, well, they started reacting not to her looks, but to the way she presented herself. I honestly thought to myself, that is a really wonderful and great movie to watch, specifically about the importance of self acceptance and how your personal attitude toward yourself fundamentally changes your entire life.
yes, that's true. Well, for me personally, it's probably like a discovery every time. When you walk around with sparkling eyes and you feel like life is just bubbling inside you. On those days, someone will definitely want to get to know you. Someone will definitely give you a compliment. So you realize that when you're in that state, you're like a kind of energy generator, genuine, full of life. That's true. Personally, as much as my husband and I have discussed this topic, I can look at a very attractive person and feel nothing. For me, it really doesn't matter what a person looks like. The most important thing for me is what I feel from that person. If I feel good being around this person, then I'm interested in them. If I don't feel that, no matter how, I don't know, no matter how incredibly beautiful they are or whatever else, even if they have 10 crowns, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, look, from my side, I think I've asked all the questions I wanted to. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Maybe something I haven't covered?
Probably these layers, meaning yes, we have the physical level of self-acceptance, then there's the creative level or the level where a certain potential was passed on to us. This is what we talked about, that you just need to try different creative directions, including sports. That is to try different kinds of sports. And then there's the level of self-acceptance. This is probably a higher level. This is where the higher self exists. Or you could say, well, probably the higher self, yes. I don't even know how else to explain it. It's where it's something, well, if, for example, the body was at this level, this was that level, and here it's kind of the absolute highest and most profound level, where you no longer find yourself burdened by any lingering questions or doubts. Yeah, on those lower floors, things were different, but here it's as if you are in a state of complete and total acceptance of the very reason you were born into this world. That it is precisely this life you were born for this purpose, and you are all of it together. As if together with your body, with your ancestors, with everyone, you accept it all, and it's like a complete picture of yourself forms.
Turns out I put it all together. I realized when you mentioned about in order to understand why you were born, sometimes I have this question for the world. Why is it that like others seem to do less but get more? And you, it seems like you do this and everything else and 100 other things, but for you it's somehow harder. And you think, well, there must be some meaning in this. Is this also about accepting yourself or is it about something else?
There's this truly incredible and fascinating thing about the actual fact that some people do little and things come easily to them, while others do a lot and things are hard for them. The question is probably how we process this information for ourselves. For example, I'm, let's say, a girl from the village, meaning I grew up in a village and I've seen life on this side and on that side. And what did I observe? I observed this difference among my acquaintances and among my clients. Those who were born already into a family that was well off, their perception, for example, is I cleaned the house, and like, oh my God, I honestly just cleaned the whole house. But for those people who come from a much more challenging and disciplined upbringing, it was the absolute norm that before you were ever allowed to go outside to play with your friends, you first had to clean the entire house from top to bottom and then receive formal permission from your parents. And you think, well, cleaning the house is nothing. 1, 2, 1, 2, you even come up with your own techniques to get it done really quickly. And actually, I realized that this is exactly about how we perceive what we do. Do we see it as something hard or do we see it as something easy? It's a question of creative thinking.
Well, not exactly, to be honest. It's just that, well, I'm also kind of not exactly from a village, but from a small town. And for me, doing a lot of things isn't exactly hard either. But still, there are some moments when you just can't understand why they feel harder for you. I don't know, maybe you just don't fully know that side of things or her. Or maybe you deliberately don't want to see it because you want to feel sorry for yourself or something. I don't know how to put it exactly.
Yes, there is an element of self pity. When there is self pity, it seems to us that things are harder for us. And here again, we can look at why we want to get stuck in self pity, why we don't want to accept it as something that, in principle, is normal. Yes, like I did it. Okay, like I did it. I mean, it's just some process in your life. Well, it is quite obvious that some processes are significantly more challenging than others. But if you take a step back and look at the much broader perspective, you can understand that what you're going through right now is a completely normal part of the journey.
No, later, when some time has passed, I'm like, oh my God, it's so good that it was done. Especially when you then see people who don't really, well, it's not that their life is worse, but for example, they have some kind of, it's called a disability in English. And you think, my God, really, what is there to complain about? I mean, what are you even talking about? You basically have all the tools. You've been given everything, haven't you? They've even told you, you could say, the path, you understand where to go. So what are you whining about? But in the moment, it can be hard.
Well, that's at a growth point in any case. Every moment when things are hard for us is exactly the moment when you can tell yourself, okay, it's tough for me right now. Do I want to feel sorry for myself or do I want to move forward?
So basically, you admit to yourself that it feels hard for you. That doesn't mean it's actually hard for others. It's specifically hard for you based on your own parameters, your own settings. And you say, okay, it's hard, but I want to keep moving forward. I'm grateful for what I have right now. And please let it be so. May I get back to normal as soon as possible?
Yes, if you really exaggerate to explain it, it's like working on your abs. At first, it's hard, or doing pull ups. At first, it's very hard. You don't understand, yeah, damn, how do you even do it? What muscle do you need to engage to make it happen? But you keep repeating it, and at some point, it becomes easy. It's the same when you hit a wall and it's really hard for you. That just means you need to keep going, because if you fall back, you'll never be able to get through that moment. And for each person, that difficult moment comes in their own way. Well, again, there's this example. Those who grew up in tougher conditions, physical labor comes easily to them. But the other side is very difficult for them. The other side is where you need to know how not to devalue yourself. It's where you need to know how to encourage yourself. It's where you need to stop and rest. So they have their own other sides. And those who grew up having everything handed to them from birth have a different side. One way or another, everyone needs to work on something. We all, in one way or another, develop some of our unique additional sides.
I just realized now, while you were talking about how there's another side to people for whom physical labor comes easily, that, for example, there's the issue of devaluation. So, for instance, it's hard for them to accept something like help, for example. I realized that as if in every situation, this acceptance of yourself is like you have to accept the situation. And it looks like this: you agree that you are at this particular point, and then you simply decide for yourself what to do about it. That is, you don't waste energy sitting around and feeling sorry for yourself, wondering why this happened to you. You sit, or rather, preferably, you do something and ask yourself how to move forward from here. Where do I want to go? So, is that how it works? Well, kind of. Ideally, you accept the situation and ask yourself where you want to go and what you can do to get there.
Yes,
Well, great. A super technique for all times.
yes. So to sum it up, is that like the level where we are above? And there, where we understand why we were born and what we are doing, probably when you look at these difficult situations in life from that perspective, it becomes easier to cope. With these two levels, accepting your body and accepting your ancestors. But when you get stuck in the body, it's very hard. For some reason, I don't know, well, I've also gained weight now, right? I could endlessly pick at myself about this, but I understand why this is happening to me. These processes are happening to me right now. I don't punish myself for it. I just keep going. I keep doing sports. I continue, so to speak, to work on myself physically. At the next level, it comes down to accepting your ancestors. Yes, I still feel something flaring up somewhere. Of course, it's not like it used to be, it's much less now, but still something is happening. And over these almost 6 months that we've been here, probably the coolest process I've experienced is this very separation, where on a deeper level, I am accepting myself precisely through this process of separating. That is, by staying here at a distance from everyone, I finally managed to bring order within myself. Before this time, yes, I was putting things in order, but there just weren't those deepest levels inside. And if you go to this higher level asking why I even live and what my purpose is, it feels like just now, over these past 6 months, it's becoming even clearer and more distinct. And the coolest thing is, as I like to say, well, whether it's God, my highest self, or the universe,
Whatever you want to call it.
the creator, the universe, yes, absolutely everything, whatever you want to call it. I think, are you the cheerful one here, or am I the cheerful one? I don't even know. I understand that in this life there will still be different directions for me, and it's not like I'll be doing just one thing my whole life. I'll be doing only this, and that's so cool. And I think, well, okay.
So essentially, when you look at the big picture, you agree that something is meant for you, that something has been truly destined for your life, and there's a certain specific path you'll follow. You agree that at the very least, you'll try to do it. Whether it works out in the end or not, you'll still give it your absolute best effort and make the attempt anyway.
Yes, yes. I think the same thing is happening to you right now.
Exactly the same for me.
I was gaining a huge amount of new experience
Yes.
in.
So, well, I hope this was useful for you. If you have any questions, write to us. Also, write about your practice and we'll send it separately. That's all. Thank you for your attention and try to accept yourself and your own path.
Yes, and from a broader perspective,
From a broader perspective, wish for others to accept themselves too and be happy for others when something works out for them.
that's awesome. Yeah, go ahead. This is very, very important. I agree with what Anya is saying. When we can genuinely rejoice in the success of others, miracles happen in our own lives. Well, that's really how it is.
Said the magician. That's all. Bye bye.
Bye.